Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're actually going to skip our usual agenda entirely. Why? Well, because I really want to preserve every single ounce of the incredible, chilling mystery we're about to unravel together. We are diving into one of the most famous, terrifying, and enduring legends of the modern world. And we're going to break the whole thing down using just the facts. Death shall come on swift wings to whoever disturbs the peace of the Pharaoh. Just let those words hang in the air for a second. Pretty intense, right? This was the supposed 3,000-year-old warning found etched outside a sealed royal tomb in the Egyptian desert. A warning that was allegedly ignored, unleashing a terrifying supernatural vengeance upon the modern world. Which brings us to the absolute core question we're answering today. Did a 3,000-year-old tomb really claim 22 lives? It's a question that completely consumed the global media in the 1920s. And what I want you to take away from this explainer is just how easily human psychology, sensationalist media, and pure random coincidence can weave a myth so powerful that it survives for an entire century. Section 1. The Curse Awakens. Okay, let's dive into the sequence of events because they are truly bizarre. To understand how this global panic started, we need to travel back to 1923, right as the so-called curse seemingly awakens. The atmosphere at the time was absolutely thick with dread. It starts in Cairo's Continental Hotel. Lord Carnarvon, the wealthy British aristocrat who funded the tomb's excavation, is tossing and turning with a severe fever. At exactly 1:55 a.m., he takes his last breath. And get this, at that exact moment, the entire city of Cairo suffers a massive electrical blackout, just completely plunged into darkness. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in England, Carnarvon's beloved dog Susie suddenly lets out a terrifying howl and drops dead. And if that wasn't enough, just days earlier, the expedition leader, Howard Carter, had his pet golden canary swallowed whole by a cobra, which is a powerful symbol of Egyptian royalty, right inside its cage. I mean, no wonder the public was absolutely terrified.
Section 2. The Discovery of the Century.
So how did these men end up in the crosshairs of this supposed curse in the first place? Let's flash back just a few months to 1922 and see how this all builds up. Howard Carter wasn't your typical elite, stuffy archaeologist. He was actually a sickly painter's son who inherited nothing but a paintbrush. Lord Carnarvon had funded him for 15 years, spending the modern equivalent of millions with absolutely zero results. Carnarvon basically told Carter, look, this is your absolute last chance. And then the ultimate breakthrough. November 4th, steps are found cut into the rock. By November 5th, the stairway is completely cleared. On the 24th, they can finally read the seal on the plastered door, Tutankhamun. And on November 26th, a day Carter called the most wonderful of his life, he chipped a small hole in the door, held up a candle, and when they asked him if he could see anything, he replied, yes, wonderful things.
5,398. That is the staggering number of perfectly preserved artifacts packed into that tomb, literally untouched for 3 millennia. We're talking about a solid gold coffin, a 10-kilogram gold death mask, and, incredibly, even a dagger forged from a fallen meteorite. It was, without a doubt, the greatest archaeological discovery in human history.
Section 3. A Trail of Dead Men. But that triumph was incredibly short-lived. The glittering gold was very quickly overshadowed by what the media dubbed a trail of dead men. 22. Just let that heavy number sink in. By the year 1929, 22 people directly or indirectly connected to the tomb's discovery had died. The global media frenzy was unprecedented. Every single time someone associated with the dig caught a cold or had a minor accident, it was front-page news. The headlines practically wrote themselves as the bodies piled up. American financier George J. Gould visited the tomb and died of a fever the very next day. Richard Bethel, Carnarvon's secretary, died of heart clots. When his 78-year-old father, Lord Westbury, heard the news, he tragically jumped from his 7th-floor apartment. But you want to know the deepest irony here? Arthur Weigel. He was the Daily Mail journalist who heavily promoted the curse myth to the public in the first place. Well, he ended up catching a fever in Egypt and became victim number 21 on the very list he helped sensationalize. But the detail that sent the global public into an absolute uncontrollable panic? Lord Carnarvon originally fell ill because he accidentally sliced open a mosquito bite on his cheek while shaving. Years later, in 1926, a doctor unwrapped and examined the actual mummy of King Tut. And what did he find? A distinct round scar on the mummy's cheek. The exact same cheek in the exact same spot as Carnarvon's fatal bite. The newspapers went completely wild over this. I mean, the ancient curse was undeniable now, right? Section 4. The Boy King's Reality. Now, if we zoom out to ancient Egypt and actually look at the Boy King's reality, a very different picture starts to emerge. Tutankhamun wasn't some powerful, dark sorcerer casting hexes from the afterlife. He was actually a fragile, tragically sick teenager. Due to extreme royal inbreeding, which was pretty common as pharaohs wanted to keep their bloodlines pure, he suffered from severe genetic defects. He had a debilitating clubfoot, which is exactly why there were 130 walking sticks found in his tomb. He literally couldn't walk without them. He suffered from Kohler's disease, an incredibly painful bone disorder. Oh, and modern science found evidence of malaria in his system too. He was a weak, vulnerable boy who died around age 18 or 19 during a really chaotic time in Egyptian history. Section 5. Science debunks the myth. So, the absolutely crucial point is this. If the pharaoh wasn't a powerful magician, what was killing all these people in the 1920s? Let's go ahead and turn the lights on in this dark room. Remember that terrifying warning we read at the beginning? Death shall come on swift wings? It never existed. It was entirely fake. Decades later, a security officer for the tomb actually confessed. An aggressive journalist had asked about curses. The team, who were super annoyed by the press at this point, simply didn't deny it. They just smiled. And from that single, silent smile, a reporter literally fabricated the inscription just to sell newspapers. There was no curse written on the walls. But people were dying of strange fevers. Why? Well, enter Aspergillus niger. This is a real ancient fungus that can survive for thousands of years in sealed, dark environments like tombs. When the tomb was opened, spores were released into the air. Inhaling them causes severe respiratory inflammation. It's just a biological reality. And the tragic part? Today, this is easily treatable with a simple round of antibiotics. And what about those spooky coincidences? Let's use a little logic to dismantle the most famous supernatural proof. The myth states Lord Carnarvon's dog died at the exact moment he did. But when researchers actually checked the historical clocks and accounted for the time zone difference between Cairo and England, they found the dog died several hours later. It was just a really sad coincidence, completely amplified by grief and media hype. I want to rapid-fire a few more reality checks for you here. That dramatic Cairo blackout? Historians confirm that rolling power cuts were a completely normal, everyday occurrence in 1920s Cairo. Carnarvon's infected shaving cut? Remember, penicillin didn't even exist in 1923. A simple infection was often a flat-out death sentence back then. Furthermore, Carnarvon was already chronically ill. It's the very reason he moved to Egypt's warm climate in the first place. The whole supernatural narrative just completely crumbles under the weight of basic facts. Section 6. The Final Plot Twist. I promised you an explainer that would leave you astounded, and we have officially reached the climax. Because there is one final plot twist, an ultimate statistical proof that basically puts the nail in the coffin of the mummy's curse. 73 years. A brilliant scientist and investigator named James Randi decided to actually run the numbers on this. He looked at all 44 Westerners present in Egypt during the discovery, including all these so-called cursed victims. He calculated their average age of death. It was 73 years old. In the 1920s, that was actually slightly higher than the average life expectancy. So the curse wasn't killing people early. Statistically speaking, they were actually living longer. Think about it. If a curse were real, who would be its primary targets? Obviously, the people who physically violated the tomb, right? Well, Lady Evelyn, Carnarvon's daughter, was one of the very first people inside the tomb. She lived to be 78. Dr. Douglas Derry, the man who actually took a knife and physically unwrapped the mummy, lived to be 87. And Howard Carter himself, the man who hammered the hole, opened the door, and disturbed the peace of the pharaoh, he lived for another 16 years after the discovery, dying naturally at age 64. In fact, for the rest of his life, whenever breathless, panicked reporters would run up to Howard Carter and ask him about the terrifying curse of the mummy, Carter would just look at them, sigh, and give this simple, defiant response: "I am still alive." Which leads us to a truly beautiful realization. You see, the ancient Egyptians had this profound belief. They believed that a person only truly dies when the world stops saying their name. For 3,000 years, Tutankhamun's enemies tried to erase him from history. He was completely lost to the sands of time. Howard Carter didn't die from a curse. By stubbornly digging in the dirt for 15 years and uncovering that tomb, Carter didn't doom the pharaoh. He gave a forgotten 18-year-old boy true immortality. Because of Carter, the entire world knows the name Tutankhamun. And as long as we keep telling this story, he will never truly die. If a myth this easily debunked can survive for a century, what other historical truths are just waiting to be unwrapped? Thanks for learning with me today. Stay curious, keep looking at the facts, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.